Hi everyone, so welcome to this talk about the midwifery programme at Plymouth University. My name's Vic, I'm one of the midwifery lecturers at the university, and I've also got Emma with me. I'll let you introduce yourself, Emma, and where you are in the programme.
Hi everyone, my name's Emma. I'm a second year student midwife. I'm based in Plymouth.
Thank you. So we're just going to give you a talk today about the midwifery programme, entry requirements, personal statements, talking about, what the role of a midwife is, and as we go through, if anybody wants to ask any questions, feel free. I can't see the chat function while I'm in presentation mode, but feel free to unmute and ask any questions. It's absolutely fine. I'm more than happy to be interrupted. And obviously, as we go through, I'll get Emma to kind of share some of her experiences as being a student as well. And hopefully it will be a helpful session for you. So first of all, I just wanted to kind of explain what a day in the life of a midwife would be, although you can't, every day is very, very different in this job. But I think, everybody knows that midwives deliver babies, and that's the first thing that kind of people think of when you think of a midwife. But the role of a midwife is much bigger than that. We're kind of involved in the wider kind of public health role. So we see pregnant women from about 7 or 8 weeks, right up until all the way through the antenatal period, which is 9-ish months. And then we obviously are there during labour and birth, and then we look after them postnatally, sometimes up to 4 to 6 weeks, but usually just for a couple of weeks. But the role is hugely varied. Every day is very, very different. And it's a really unique role because we have oversight of their whole pregnancy, really, and we are autonomous practitioners. That means that we have quite a unique scope of practice, that we are able to make decisions for those women, and help. Well, we don't make them for them, but we help them make their decisions about their care and where they want to have their baby, and what they do during the pregnancy, and advising them on how to stay fit and healthy, and if there's complications, we do obviously refer on, but it's a hugely varied role and it's quite unique. And I think sometimes people think that our job is the same as a nurse, but again, it's very different to nursing. So we'll talk a bit more about that as we go. Essentially, to be a midwife, you have to study at degree level, and you need a degree in midwifery. As all of you are all of you school students or A levels, and or is there a mixture of applicants? Essentially, if you're coming from A levels or college, the MSc won't have an impact on you, but basically it's an undergraduate degree that is 3 years, and it's 50% placement, 50% theory, and we are in the process of offering a master's option. So those of you who do apply, you may well end up on the course with people doing it at master's level as well. It leads to a professional registration. So in order to be a practicing midwife working in the NHS, you need to have a registration, and that is, it's called a PIN, and that's through the Nursing and Midwifery Council. So in order to become a qualified midwife, you don't just do the degree, but you have to do a degree that then leads to a professional registration, which you then have to pay for each year. Our employment prospects from the university are 100%, so all of our students who qualify at the end of their 3rd years get a job. Most of them end up staying locally, but sometimes students do move away and get jobs elsewhere in the country. But one thing, just to not to put you off with these last few bullet points, but one thing to be mindful of is it is very hard work. It is a difficult degree. It's not like other healthcare related degrees are much more intense than in terms of the time and effort that you need to put in compared to possibly if you've got friends that are applying to do other courses. It is really hard work. You have to balance between academic and clinical demands. So when you're on placement, you're working full-time hours, and then you've also got university work to do on top of that. You do work very long hours when you're on placement. So when you're in the hospital on your placements, you will just follow the same shift patterns that the midwives do, and you'll have assigned supervisors which you work with, who basically mentor you and look after you in practice. So, you know, it does mean doing 12-hour shifts, it does mean nights, and obviously you need to be ready for the fact that you won't be able to be earning any money. So obviously you don't get paid during your training. And to be honest, it's quite difficult to manage a part-time job on top of all of these requirements. Or some people do manage it, but again, it can be quite difficult. So that none of that is intended to put you off, but it's just about being realistic about what the course is and the demands, because unless you really feel passionately that this is really what you want to do, some of those demands are too much unless your heart's really in it. So something to bear in mind. But of course, it's an incredible job, and the training is great. As hard as it is, it's great. I don't know if you want to add anything, Emma.
No, I completely agree that the balance between academic and clinical demands is, it's really important. And also, if I was going to add anything to that, it would just be to be organised from the outset so that you can make sure that, you can balance everything and things don't get on top of you. It sounds scary, but it's definitely doable. And people manage it, with children and without children, and, with a part-time job and without a part-time job. So, yeah, it's just being realistic as to what your kind of demands are within your life, and then, working everything around that as best you can.
Yeah, definitely. I've talked a little bit about this. So the program itself and the course is 156 weeks of the year, and so that means that unlike other degree programs, you don't get those lovely 3 months off over the summer that loads of other university students get. You get 3 weeks in the summer, so you are taking on a course that requires you to be committed, and either in theory or practice, for 156 weeks of the year, which means you get 2 weeks at Christmas annual leave, 2 weeks annual leave at Christmas, 2 weeks at Easter, and 3 weeks in the summer. The structure is 50-50, i.e. 50% of your training is theory, as in the university lectures, that side of things, and 50% is clinical placement, when you're working in the hospital full-time hours with the midwives. They're done in blocks. Have a block of theory for 6 weeks or so, and then you'll have a block of placement, which will be again about 6 weeks usually, sometimes 4 weeks. Our whole curriculum is mapped to NMC standards, so it's probably worth, if you are thinking of applying, that you have a look at what the Nursing and Midwifery Council standards are, and also what the EU requirements are as well. And then also we've got BFI accreditation, so that's the Baby Friendly Initiative, which and lots of our trusts do as well. So we're very proud of the course that we offer, and we've recently just got approval from the Nursing and Midwifery Council for a new curriculum. So the curriculum that we are implementing in September is going to be a new curriculum, different to the ones that the students are doing at the moment. So that's a really exciting, that for any of you who do want to apply, you're going to be coming onto a program that's been kind of redeveloped and revamped. So it's quite an exciting time to be joining the university. Your theory component is basically split into modules. So you have certain modules each year, and they run in different semesters. So for the first semester, you might have, say, 2 modules, and then in the second semester, you have another 2 modules. Initially, it might not necessarily be 9 weeks, but usually you have a kind of good chunk, 8 or 9 weeks in theory when you first start, and then we send you out into placement really early. So some midwifery programs, they keep you in theory for quite a while before they put you out into placement, whereas we feel really strongly that the best place to learn is out in clinical practice. So we do send you out very quickly, but it's really exciting to come in and only spend 8 or 9 weeks in theory, and then you go out into the hospital. You know, you're in your uniform, you get to go onto the wards, you get to go to delivery suite, and some students even deliver their first babies in that first placement block. So it's really exciting, but it is quite quick. But you know, that's something we're really proud of, that our students get to go out so quickly. You obviously have lectures, you have practical workshops, and the picture that you can see there is the Nancy Astor building on campus, and that's where all of the clinical skills are run. So we teach you all your basic clinical skills in those first few weeks. Obviously, we can't teach you everything, but we teach you things like blood pressure, how to check people's urine with a urine dipstick, how to palpate a woman's abdomen to feel what position the baby's in. So we do all of that in clinical skills. So we have our skills labs have all of the clinical equipment that you would have in practice, so that you can actually physically have a go. And then you obviously have tutorials and other kind of workshops. And then obviously there's an element of private study. So, you know, when you are come to university, you are adult learners, and the responsibility is on you to be proactive in doing your own reading and studying around the subject. So usually on a Wednesday you have a reading day, and that's where lots of other things happen on campus as well. So, you know, if you join a society or sport team or something, generally Wednesdays are when that happens. And then also you get time for private study as well. But like Emma said earlier, it's really important to be really organised, because you do need to be juggling theory, as in you'll have lectures that you need to go to, you'll have assignments that you need to be writing, so you need to make sure you know when those are due. You need to make sure that you are using your private study time for being able to write assignments and things, and then also you've got to manage all of that with your placement as well. And we do a range of different assessments, and some of you might look at these and think, oh, that sounds horrible. You know, some people hate exams, some people hate essays, some people hate presentations, but the point is for any degree to be inclusive of different people's needs, we have a range of assessments so that people can excel in the ones that they need to excel in. And then also for people who don't like presentations, that you can build your confidence in presenting, because it's important for practice to be able to have that confidence to talk in front of people. So yeah, you will have essays, you will have some exams, you will have presentations. When you're in placement, you have a document which is called an OAR, so it's an ongoing achievement record, and that's got all of the requirements set out that you have to achieve each year. So when you're in placement working with the midwives are also going to be assessing and passing your practice element of your degree. We do clinical examinations, which we refer to as OSCEs, and they're basically it's like a clinical scenario that you get given and you have to act it out. So it might be that you have to perform, say, a blood pressure on somebody. So you actually act out the clinical situation as you would in practice, and you have all of the equipment and everything that you need. So it's just a different way of assessing, and lots of healthcare courses use those as a way of assessing students. And then in your last year you do kind of like a dissertation module, which is to do with research. So it'll be either a research proposal, but also our new option is going to be a quality improvement project, but that will make much more sense, you know, as you go through the programme. And that's a big piece of work that you do right at the end in your third year. For those of you who are local, you will probably be familiar with some of these placement areas already. So we essentially link our students with hospitals, maternity units in the southwest, basically. So we've obviously got the hospital in Plymouth. We've got a hospital in Cornwall, but obviously, you know, the Cornwall patch covers the whole of Cornwall because you've obviously got community areas as well. And then you've got a hospital in Torquay, one in Exeter, one in Barnstaple, one in Yeovil, which is up here, and one in Taunton. So we cover a really big patch, but obviously, you know, if you get offered a place, you'll be offered a placement area, and that's the placement area that you'll stay in for all 3 years. So if, when you are applying, you need to familiarise yourself with where these placement areas are and think about things like, do you drive? If you don't drive, are you planning to drive? And realistically, where can you get to if you're relying on public transport? You know, if you're doing a night shift, you need to be thinking about how far you can travel after that, how far, you know, I'd say probably an hour is the furthest, I would say, because otherwise it's quite difficult to do that after a night shift. So these are things that you need to think about, because we do ask about that. If you get an interview, we ask about where you live and where your preferences would be for placements. And also just remember that it's not, your placement isn't, you're linked with a hospital, but also you are required to work in community, which can be, you know, a huge area. Our Cornwall area covers all of this. I mean, the Plymouth patch does cross over into Cornwall a little bit, but the Cornwall patch particularly is really big. So definitely something to bear in mind when you're thinking about placement areas, where you're going to live. Are you going to stay at home? Are you going to live in halls? If you're in halls, how are you going to travel to and from placement? Things like that. So definitely something to have a think about.
Nick,
Yeah.
I just say, in terms of placement areas, um, some of the hospitals do offer accommodation, so, or have, you know, places that they would recommend for students to stay at. So, you know, if you do come from Plymouth and you do get placed in Cornwall, let's say, don't overly panic, because there is always an option to have an accommodation place for you to stay during your placement, if that's something that you feel like you might be able to do.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely, that's a good point. And sometimes the hospitals have accommodation that they have nursing students stay in as well. So there's definitely options, but equally you do need to be realistic about what you think you can and can't do. But yeah, definitely good point. I forgot about that. So probably the thing that's on most of your minds is the application process. Now our applications department at the university is really helpful, and there's loads of information on the website. But essentially, you need to apply through UCAS. You need to make sure that you have got enough tariff points based on what your predicted grades are. You must have 5 GCSEs that include maths, English and science. Generally with A levels, we do want A science, and yeah, so we don't do a deferred entry. So that's basically it. Say you were to apply and you've got a place to start in September, and then something happened and you thought, you know what, I want a year out, can I defer and come next year? We don't offer deferred entry, purely because it is a very competitive program, and we have so many people wanting to get on, we just can't offer deferred entry. But yeah, there's much more information on UCAS and on the Plymouth University website. And if you have any queries or concerns, the admissions team are your best people to speak to, because they understand all of the entry and admissions processes. Something to have a think about is what experience have you got so far that that would be beneficial to, the your application process, but also, what have you got that is transferable skills that you can bring to midwifery. And don't be put off applying if you don't have healthcare experience. It's absolutely fine. I didn't when I applied to be a student midwife, and I'd never had any healthcare experience, but I had other transferable skills from other things that I'd done. So definitely don't let that put you off. But what you do need to think about is, when you're doing your personal statement, what is it about you specifically that makes you different to all the other applicants, that would mean that you're the person that we want on the programme. So if you don't feel that you've got any transferable skills that would benefit midwifery at the moment, then be having a think about what you can do. So and that might mean volunteering, but whether it's paid work in a healthcare setting or a care home, or caring for people at home, or being a volunteer, even just being a volunteer in the hospital. Not at the moment, it's a bit more difficult with COVID and everything, but there's peer support groups for like breastfeeding groups that have run virtually. There's loads of things you can do, but it's something that you need to think about before you go through the application process, to really make your application stand out and demonstrate to us that you've got some transferable skills that would benefit a program like this. Is there anything you want to add there, Emma? If I've missed any other?
I can't really think of much, no.
No.
When I was writing my personal statement, I tried to make sure that everything I wrote, um, I could relate back to midwifery. So, um, I mean, I did have some healthcare experience, but it wasn't necessarily in a maternity setting. And I also had experience in things like, I was an army cadet instructor for a while, so there's some good skills there in terms of, working in a team and being able to build a relationship with somebody really quickly. Um, and being able to instruct or teach or guide. So yeah, it's just about relating the experiences you do have back to part of the role of a midwife.
Hmm. Yeah. And it also shows to us through the application process that you understand what the role of a midwife is, and that you don't think it's just delivering or cuddling babies. So,
Get very few cuddles.
yeah,
Get
you
very
don't
few
really get
cuddles.
to, yeah, you don't get to cuddle babies very much.
No.
And when mums say to you, "Oh, would you like a cuddle?" and you're like, "Yes, please," they're like, "Oh, I thought you'd be a bit bored of cuddling babies." No, we don't. We don't get to cuddle
Never
them very
get them.
much. So yeah, it could be something even as straightforward as, being in some sort of sport team, because like Emma saying, that shows that you can work as part of a team, and as a midwife you need to work in a team, so it's really important. So yeah, relating it back to midwifery is a really, really good piece of advice. I think there's a slide about personal statements. Yeah, so I think it's limited to 4,000 characters on UCAS, but this is the thing that I know for anybody who is thinking of applying, that causes the anxiety, is what do you write in your personal statement. But there's loads of examples online and help and support of how to write a personal statement, and actually the times that I've written them, it can be really difficult because you have to basically blow your own trumpet and tell us how amazing you are, and for most of us that's just an alien thing to do, because you don't like to, most people don't like to big themselves up, but you really do. You need to say to us, "I'm amazing, and this is why, because I'll bring this, and this to being a midwife." And don't be put off by really telling us how amazing you think you are, because we do get a lot of applications, and you need to really sell yourself to us to get to the point of interview. But making a good personal statement is essentially, you need something that's gonna make you kind of stand out. You need to really, really be able to demonstrate that you are a caring and compassionate and kind person who is motivated and enthusiastic, and we need to see that you've got a passion for midwifery in your personal statement as well, and that you can demonstrate that you have some sort of understanding of what the role of a midwife is and what skills you think you bring to that already, and that's it in a nutshell, really. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Emma.
No, I can't think of anything. No,
No.
I just had a quick look to see if I could find my personal statement, but I've obviously got rid of it. Um, I'm hoping I won't ever need it again. But yeah, I think I did just that. And also, I mean, I know some of you might be applying to more than one university, but try and make sure that your personal statement for that university is tailored to that university. So I know when I applied to Plymouth, I mentioned I was really excited to be able to use their clinical skills suites and the facilities that were available at Plymouth University, rather than just making it generic. That shows to the lecturers and stuff then that you've done your research and you are interested in studying midwifery, not only midwifery but at their university.
Mm.
I think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know, I just think that's quite a good thing to put in there.
Mm. Yeah, and I think and obviously it's quite difficult because for most of you might not fully know what the role of a midwife is, but if you can do a bit of research and a bit of reading online, and that's the thing that we mainly want people to be able to demonstrate that they've done a bit of reading and that they've been proactive and they've put the effort in to really kind of sell themselves, and also make sure that you at this stage know a bit about midwifery. Obviously we're not expecting you to be experts because it's our job to teach you that over the 3 years, but we really want you to show that you're enthusiastic and you're proactive, and that you have already kind of thought about some of these things. Yeah, and that we want enthusiasm, really. That's the main thing.
If you're unsure, you can always find a student midwife and talk to them. They're always, a lot of us are really happy to talk about what we're doing. It's exciting.
Hmm.
And we're very aware that you guys don't always realize what it is that we have to do. But yeah, if you just be aware, you might have us going on for about half an hour to an hour, because we do really enjoy what we're doing. So we're always happy to talk about it, or get
Yeah.
in touch with the Midwifery Society at Plymouth. We're a good bunch. We like to talk about midwifery. So yeah, we'd always be happy to impart some knowledge.
Yeah. And the other thing as well, the other piece of advice is get somebody to proofread it. If it's a tutor at your college, at your sixth form, whatever course you're doing, even if it's just a relative, just to proofread it for typos, get somebody to proofread it and give you some feedback. If you know somebody that's a midwife, even better. But yeah, even just to make sure that even just things like spelling and punctuation are correct. And just get a bit of guidance and feedback before you submit it as well. Oh, we've talked about this. Let me just move. I can't really see very well at the moment. Understanding, yeah, so I think this is everything I've already said, that you understand what the profession is, what your key attributes are, so what makes you unique, and what are you going to bring to the midwifery profession. Commitment, motivation, enthusiasm. What have you done work experience wise? What personal qualities do you have? Because we also want to know that just you yourself are a kind, compassionate person, because you can't always teach that. It's got to be just a personal attribute or characteristic of you anyway, and also transferable skills. The other thing as well is that once you've done your personal statement and your application has been assessed, then you'll be offered, potentially offered an interview. Usually they are done face to face with us as the midwifery lecturers. Obviously at the moment we're doing Zoom interviews, so I don't know when that's going to end. Nobody does at the moment with this COVID situation. But if you're successful at interview, you'll then be offered a conditional place. We don't offer any unconditional offers, because all, or even if you've got your grades, or got your qualifications, it's still subject to occupational health clearance and also a DBS check. So all of our offers are conditional. Sometimes once you interview, you might be placed on hold for a little while if you've scored enough points to pass the interview, but maybe not like right in the top points. You might be on hold for a little while. Or the other thing is that you don't score highly enough and you might not get an offer on this occasion. But one thing that we always say to applicants is, please don't take it personally, and please don't be put off reapplying, because we are a competitive programme and sometimes it takes people a couple of attempts. A lot of our students take a couple of attempts, and it's not that they're not going to make fabulous midwives, it is just that we are a competitive programme. But that having said, I don't want that to put anybody off. We do hear that sometimes people think, oh, I won't bother trying because it is really competitive, but definitely don't think that. You've got
I
as
did
good a chance
that.
as anybody. Did
I did
you?
that, yeah. I went to an open day and it was absolutely what I wanted to do, and then my college tutor was like, "Don't apply for midwifery, no one ever gets on midwifery, it's really, really difficult to get onto." So I didn't, and then I went back to an open day later on in the academic year, spoke to one of the lecturers, and she was like, "Don't be so silly, apply." And I got in through clearing. So,
Mhm.
yeah, don't do what I did and waste half an academic year, planning to do a different degree. Just go for it.
Yeah, definitely, just go for it. Don't be put off. You've got just
Yeah,
as good a chance as anybody.
absolutely.
But equally, please don't take it personally if you're not successful. It's likely not a personal thing, and if it's something you really want to do, then just go for it and keep persevering.
One of the other lecturers actually on the programme said to me, she said, if you had a 1 in 4 chance of, or a 1 in 5 chance of winning the lottery, would you buy a ticket? And I was like, well, of course I would. And she was like, well, there you go then. You've got a 1 in 5 chance of getting onto the midwifery degree. So go for it.
Yeah,
Mm.
no, absolutely. I'm completely biased because I did my midwifery training at Plymouth and now I'm a lecturer here. So I love it so much. I've seen it from both sides. Oh, I can't go on to the next slide. So funding, you have access to all of the same support from the student loans as everybody else. So you would need to potentially, if you are wanting to live in halls or student accommodation, you would need a uh, um, can't get my words out, you would need a loan for your maintenance loan is what I'm trying to say, sorry. You need the maintenance loan to cover what your living costs are, and then you'd also need a tuition fee loan to pay the tuition fees, which at the moment is £9,250 a year. Um, Now they have just in the last couple of years just started doing the grant where student midwives get £5,000 a year for each year that they're studying. If your home situation was slightly different, if you had family or children to support, then sometimes you can be entitled to more, and some of them are means tested. If you were living with parents, they might take into account what your parents earn, to decide whether you are eligible to have any other extra grants. But one thing I would say is just apply for everything that you think that you need or that you're entitled to, and then there are sometimes other funding options available through the university once you're already on the programme as well, but they're more of like a case-by-case individual thing. Oh, what's going on here? So from a financial point of view, I've kind of said this already, so you get means tested loans which are based on income. You do get more financial support for the fact that it's a longer than average student year, and also if you did have children you would have allowances for childcare and stuff like that. And it probably won't apply to you, but you basically you can access a second set of loans if you've already done a degree before as well. But I'm not sure that's relevant to any of you. And again, this kind of just summarises what we've said throughout this session, that what are we looking for? We want enthusiastic people who will become kind and caring and compassionate midwives. Everything that we do comes back to the core values and behaviours from the NMC code. And that is essentially, that's it in a nutshell of what we want for our future generation of midwives. And you are the future of the midwifery workforce. The people who are training now and carrying that profession on for when the older midwives are retiring, and the profession changes all the time. So we want dynamic people who are going to push for change and to push things forward and to move with the times. So that's the kind of people that we want as well. Does anybody have anything that they would like to ask me or Emma? Feel free to unmute. Don't be shy. You can ask us anything.
Can I ask a question about what equipment we need? Do we get provided with things, or do we need to purchase things?
Not really. So in terms of, you don't need clinical equipment or anything like that, because you'd have that on placement. The only thing you'd really need to buy is you need to invest in a very comfortable, decent pair of shoes for placement, because you're on your feet for a long time. Fob watch is always helpful. You obviously get a uniform. I don't know what. One thing that's very handy is little notebooks that fit in your uniform pocket, and lots and lots and lots of pens, because people steal your pens when you're a midwife. What else did you buy, Emma? I'm trying to think what I bought.
Oh, don't do what I did. I completely overbought and went mad and didn't need any of it and wasted a load of money. So yeah, do what Vic suggested and just buy a really good pair of shoes, a pack of black pens. You can get them on Amazon for like next to nothing. And yeah, maybe a fob watch. That's pretty much it. Some students like to buy their own stethoscope. It's not needed at all.
You don't need it.
You really don't need one. They're literally everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But I know some people get gifted them. You don't need to buy any books. The library is stacked full of books. I went and bought a ton, as you can probably see behind me, and I hardly used any of them. You don't really tend to use a lot of textbooks in first year anyway. You're kind of directed towards using articles and journals and stuff like that. So yeah, use your money and buy a really good set of black shoes.
Yeah, and also if you do want to buy any books or anything, always buy secondhand ones off Amazon or eBay, because some of our core textbooks can be really expensive, and you can buy old secondhand ones, and then you can sell them to other student midwives then if you don't need them. But your uniform that we give you 3 sets, and you don't pay for those either. Sometimes people buy an extra set themselves, but we provide you with 3 lots of uniforms.
A water bottle's always good.
Yeah, which you'll lose.
Like inherently dehydrated, but yeah. Other than that, I can't think of anything.
No, yeah. So in terms of preparation for the course, there's not really much that you need to invest in to buy really. It's the shoes that are the main thing, I'd say.
Yeah.
Anybody else got any questions? No. Silence. Has any Emma, can you see the chat? Has anybody written anything?
There's
Is there
nothing
anything
in the chat? No.
Wow.
No. You can post questions in the chat if you don't want to ask us outright. That's fine. I've got the chat open now, so.
If you don't have any questions, that's absolutely fine. We won't keep you any longer. Now's your opportunity.
Vic, how many people get onto the programme?
Well, We have capacity for the next year to take on about 70 students. But we do have about 500 applications. So, you know, it is competitive, but please don't be put off by that. But we do have we'd have capacity for about 70 places in this September. And the only reason that we are restricted in capacity is because we can only have so many students in each hospital. So if you think about the maternity ward at Derriford, if you've only got 6 midwives allocated on that shift, you can't have more than 6 students. So that's what our limiting factor is. From a university point of view, us as lecturers, I mean, we could teach hundreds, but we can't, but we're limited from placement. But yeah, about 70 places. I can see the chat now, I've opened it as well. Great. Well, good luck for any of you who have already got interviews. May well be with me. I've got some interviews coming up.
It's really exciting thinking about interviews.
Oh, somebody got a question about placement.
Placement zones, you tend to get told just before you start.
Yes, right at the start of the programme, yeah. Because we can't allocate placement areas before we know who's accepted. So for some of you, you'll accept if you get offered a place, you'll accept it, but you might want to go somewhere else. So then you might turn us down. And that all happens like when the results come out. So we have to finalise who's definitely confirmed as taking a place on the course. And then we need to look at your requested zones, because we ask for a choice of 3. So I can see that somebody's asking about with children, is there any way that you can request local zones? This is always really difficult for us to allocate. So when you have your interview, we ask for at least 2 or 3 options in order of preference of where you'd like to go. And for those of you who do have children, we obviously will try and give and then give everybody their first choice, but it doesn't always work like that. It depends who's asked for what, but where we can, we try and give people what they want. And if you absolutely can't do the placement that you've been given, sometimes people do decide that this year isn't the year, and then maybe they'll reapply next year. But we do really try. And we know it's difficult when people have children with traveling and stuff, but people generally seem to manage it. But yeah, we try our best, but we just can't promise anything. Is it harder to get onto the course straight after sixth form, or does it not matter if you wait a few years ago? It doesn't matter. So don't be put off if you're in sixth form at the moment. We take a range of applicants. We take mature students who have, you know, they've had their families, had their children, and then they want to come into the profession. And then also, you know, we have people straight from sixth form, so it's absolutely fine. Don't feel like you need to wait. You know, there's no reason. If you want to and you want to get some experience and then apply the year after, it's completely up to you, but don't be put off by the fact that you're in sixth form and that maybe you haven't kind of been employed or, you know, got a few years experience in whatever. It doesn't matter.
No one asks either. I don't think I've ever asked anybody, you know, oh, did you come straight from sixth form, or once you're doing it, it really doesn't matter at all.
No. In my interview, I gave my options. I panicked. I can't remember what I said. Do you get another chance to choose it? Yeah, no, we don't. So the options that you give us in your interview are the options that we go by, because, you know, I completely appreciate that if you've kind of can't really remember what you've said, or you think, oh, I want to change them. But if we let every applicant do that, it would just be so difficult. So unfortunately, no. But when it comes, you know, if you were successful and got offered a place, when comes to the allocations, you can always speak to the admissions tutor nearer the time if you know you've definitely got a place, and see if there's any kind of flexibility around it. But the allocations of placement areas is always such a logistical kind of difficult job. So yeah, you won't get another opportunity to redo your options until you were to start the course, essentially. Amazing. Anything else? No, I'd say it's quite challenging. When I was a student, I didn't have children or anybody depending on me, and I had a job for the first year and a half, and it just became too much. So I didn't have a job for the last part of second year and beginning of third year. People do sometimes manage it. It depends what job it is. It depends how flexible it is, and it depends what kind of a person you are and how demanding the course is on you, and does it completely kind of tire you out. So it's an individual thing, but generally it is quite difficult to have a job. And the reason that I would say that is because when some people get a job in their holiday, in their annual leave, just for a couple of weeks here and a couple of weeks there. But the one thing is that holiday is time for you to just have some time back, because the course is full on. So, and because when you're on placement, you're working shifts that would be different every week. You can't have a Saturday job, say, because there'll be times where you'll have to work Saturdays on placement. So, and you can't do your placement hours around your job, because this is a full-time course. So our expectation is that this is your priority, and if you can manage a job, that's fine, but the job has to fit around the course rather than the course fit around the job. So by all means, if you're able to manage it and you've got something that's flexible, people definitely do, and maybe it's something you do for the first year and see how you get on, and if it's too much, you stop doing it. But it's very individual. I think you just have to see how you go.
I was just going to say, you need to make sure that you factor in time for you, and factor in time to make sure that you are, you have periods of time where you're doing nothing. Because like Vic said, it is full on. Your placement is 37.5 hours a week, which is, a full-time job. And then there may be points in your course where you're doing placement and you have an assessment to do as well. So, that's extra time on your days off. So the last thing you want, as well as that, is to be doing a job.
And you don't want to overwork yourself and run yourself into the ground as well. So it definitely is important that you have time for you as well. But I think it's just you just got to see how it goes, and just take it a few weeks at a time. And if it becomes too much, then think about dropping it.
Connie, it's 37.5 hours a week, so full-time job hours.
But it doesn't work out as 37.5 every week.
No.
Because as you can imagine, with the shift, some weeks, say you work with your midwife and maybe you work 30 hours, but then maybe the next week you work 42 hours. So it's a bit varied. I mean, we don't want you working too many hours, but obviously with the way the shifts work, it isn't 37.5 hours on the dot every single week. It does vary a little bit. And that's another thing, as the student, it's your responsibility to keep on track of your hours. So if you fall a little bit behind, it's your responsibility to keep a track of those hours and be thinking, okay, do I need to pick up an extra shift to make up those hours? Because you have a certain amount of hours that you have to do over the whole 3 years. So if you don't do enough placement hours, you can't qualify at the end. So it's just another thing that you've got to be organised and on top of. Hopefully that was helpful. Okay, well, if nobody's got any other questions, then I will let you all go. Good luck to all of you. I hope we've not put you off. And for some of you, hopefully see you at interview and maybe see you on the course.
Good luck, everybody.
Yeah, good luck.